Welcome everyone, Dylan Gemelli here today with a brand new video for you. So today we're going to talk about MK2866, also known as Ostarine. But before we get into that, I have to reiterate that I am not a doctor. Anything that I say in this video is for your entertainment purposes only. I'm not advising nor advocating you to use any of the products that I discuss. So what you do with this information is completely up to you. So MK2866, we'll just call it Ostarine from now on. Either one is fine. It was actually first developed by a company called GTX, and the origination of the development was to prevent or treat muscle wasting. So people suffering from, like, say, cancer, AIDS, HIV, things like that, osteoporosis, when they have these diseases, obviously they start to lose muscle mass and it will start to waste or wither away. So Ostarine was developed to actually help to prevent that, or at least mitigate that from occurring. Now we know that Ostarine is a SARM, which is a selective androgen receptor modulator. Now SARMs are going to bind to the androgen receptor and they're going to demonstrate osteo, which is bone, and myo, which is muscular anabolic activity. So that will lead us into what I want to discuss. Binding and activation of the androgen receptor itself alters the expression of genes, okay, and it increases protein synthesis, which then builds muscle. So in essence, basically, SARMs like Ostarine will actually cause muscle growth in the same manner as steroids, but the key but here is that unlike testosterone and other anabolic steroids, SARMs do not produce the growth effect on the prostate and other secondary sexual organs. Ostarine in particular actually exerts its anabolic effects on muscle tissue almost exclusively. So not only does it represent a new potential treatment option for like a wide spectrum of conditions, from muscle wasting diseases, from age-related to AIDS or cancer-related, as I pointed out earlier, but it also has immense potential for muscle building for bodybuilders, and that's why so many bodybuilders are using it now, more so than ever before. Fitness athletes, all kinds of different people are using this. Just everyday normal people have actually turned to it. I'm going to get into the capabilities but for a quick example, things like healing potential, the ability to enhance an everyday person's workout, things of that nature. Ostarine is extremely versatile. I'm going to get into all of that, but I'm getting ahead of myself. But there's just so much there to discuss. So let's talk about different sorts of benefits. Let's talk about lean muscle gains first. Or, some people even throw it into a bulking scenario. And when I say bulking, I'm not talking about bulking like a D-ball or an Anadrol or certain steroids. But for a SARM or a research chemical, you can use it in that regard. So Ostarine is one of the most anabolic of any SARMs, all right? And it actually makes its first and foremost used for most people for at least the lean muscle gain, if not, getting much bigger into a bulking category. But it's going to be very lean muscle, all right? The gains in total weight are not going to be comparable to bulking steroids at all. So I don't want people to get confused with that, mix words or anything like that. But the total gains are going to be extremely lean muscle, and you're definitely going to be able to add on some size. Just don't expect 15, 20 pounds in there. Remember here, the gains are very keepable, and you can generally see an increase on average. A good number to go off of is 5 to 7 pounds, which on the surface, it may not sound like a lot to some people, but anybody that really knows this knows that's a lot, okay? To actually gain and to be able to retain. Gaining 15, 20 pounds is one thing, but how much of it will you actually be able to keep? When you have a compound that has lower side effects and an easier recovery time and no estrogenic, activity going on, it's far easier to achieve keepability than it is with the other alternative, which is all the side effects, the suppression, the estrogenic activity, things like that. The most common dose here on a bulking cycle, or really in general, is 25 milligrams per day, 8 to 12 weeks. Generally with Ostarine, the higher the dosage, the more suppression that will occur. Although suppression is very light and minimal, it's nowhere comparable to the suppression that you encounter on steroids whatsoever. But, if you start to exceed that 25 milligram mark, which I tell people to never exceed, it's going to get worse. Now, then there's also people that will use it for losing body fat or cutting, which it also fits into extremely well. Ostarine would primarily fit into a cutting protocol for the maintenance of muscle mass while actually reducing calories, which is extremely nice because most people know that, when you're trying to gain size, you're generally eating above your maintenance. But with Ostarine, you have the capability, because it prevents muscle wasting, to actually eat below maintenance and still have the capability of gaining muscle, which we're going to talk about recomposition in a minute. One of the most disheartening outcomes when you're on a cutting cycle is the loss of muscle mass, because going into it you're probably going to have to sacrifice some. The drop in metabolic rate and hormone levels like T3, IGF, testosterone with the lack of calories is a perfect catabolic environment for loss of muscle tissue. As Ostarine has anabolic effects, the dieter that's using it can actually cut calories without having to worry about muscle or strength loss. Now, Ostarine has also shown noticeable nutrient partitioning effects among users, and that's another reason why it can be a great help when you're cutting. Recomposition is where I feel, and most people do feel, that it shines. All right, recomping is basically when you're trying to gain weight and drop body fat. Okay, not the easiest thing in the world. Of course, we all want to do that. Who wouldn't? Who doesn't want to gain 5, 10, 15 pounds and lower their body fat in the process? We also know that's extremely, extremely difficult. Now, with Ostarine, you have that capability. It makes it a lot easier because, as I've spoken about, the prevention of muscle wastage. All right. Where Ostarine shines in recomposition, as I just spoke about, is the nutrient partitioning benefits. Calories are taken from fat stores, and calorie intake is fed to muscle tissue. Okay? In fact, many people that use it actually report that they consumed at maintenance calories and they still had some weight loss while still getting increases in strength and muscle mass. Amazing. Okay? And this, Ostarine's going to give you the capability to do that, where it's generally not so easy or damn near impossible to do otherwise. One of the most important factors of recomposition is time, because you're trying to achieve multiple objectives and it requires a longer time period to notice really good, strong recomposition effects. So even when you're running steroids, these would have to be ran longer, all right? So you're looking at more like injectables as opposed to orals for that, sort of goal. Although Ostarine is taken orally, it's not methylated, and it's not toxic to the liver, and it doesn't have a negative effect on your blood pressure either. So it can be run longer than any oral steroid can be ran. Normally with oral steroids, I'm telling you, cut them off between 4 and 6 weeks. Ostarine, you can go 12. Major difference. However, let me just make this clear, all right? None of these things, steroids, SARMs, peptides, whatever, HGH, these are not magic. Your diet has to be optimized, all right? Your diet and your training have to be consistent and disciplined. You can still make production when you're using compounds, but nowhere near what you should or what you think you can if these things aren't dialed in. Now, another thing I want to talk about is injury prevention, all right? Now, the effects of Ostarine translate to anabolism in bone and skeletal muscle tissue, which means that it could be used in the future for a variety of uses, such as osteoporosis, and as concurrent treatment with drugs that reduce bone density. So it has a great application as a compound for use in rehabilitation of injuries, in particular bone and tendon-related injuries. Ostarine has a half-life of 24 hours. So you only have to dose it once a day, and you want to keep it consistent each and every day. So if you're taking it at like 8 or 9 a.m., try to stay, within 24 hours each day of that dose. So let's talk about, real quickly, Ostarine and estrogen concerns. Now, SARMs don't aromatize. All right, they do not, conferring all their effects to the androgen receptor binding and not to metabolic conversion to active androgen or estrogens. But, all right, blood work from users has shown in some, not many, but just because it has a few times, I do have to point that out to you, a slight elevation in serum estradiol levels, which may be, one of the reasons why it has such a high effectiveness for treating tendon injuries and ligaments and bones and things like that. I don't know. The elevation is extremely small, no case for concern, in the few people that have actually shown it. But if you are concerned about slight increases in estrogen, you can always go with a very, 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 very low dose of an AI. But generally speaking, that's not necessary at all. Now, females that are running Ostarine, a couple things I got to point out. There are some side effects there that obviously men aren't going to have because these are female related, but there have been some reports of clitoris enlargement and throwing off the menstrual cycle. It's not permanent and it's not for everybody, but I have seen it in a significant amount of women. I always tell women when you're dosing it, because I tell men 25 milligrams a day, 12 weeks. I always tell women 12.5 milligrams per day the first 2 weeks at least. Get yourself adjusted and accustomed to it, see how you're responding, and then think about increasing to 25 milligrams. It's always a little bit more delicate for women in certain aspects, and this is one of them. So I just really recommend that you think about that first. Now, just real quickly, a recap of some of the benefits of Ostarine. It's anabolic even at lower doses. All right, but I do recommend running it, to get the most out of it, 25 milligrams per day for men, and I just went over the women's dosing. Great for strength, great for lean muscle gain, great for body recomposition. You can what I love about it is the versatility, because you can use it in any aspect that you want. It has its healing abilities, all right, and it has a half-life of 24 hours, so once a day dosing is perfect, and it makes it nice and easy. So that is Ostarine for you in a nutshell. That's everything that you need to know about it. I just wanted to make sure that you had all the facts and you had all your questions answered about it. So that being said, www.icearms.com/forums. I'm also in the Elite Fitness Forum as well as the Evolutionary Forum. Dylan@icearms.com is where you can email me with all questions and comments. So that being said, stay tuned for plenty more to come. Dylan Gemelli signing off.